So what's up guys, and welcome back to BS2PCG Deck Forger. So for tonight, we're going to give you a special episode wherein we have created a lot of videos, I think 70 decks or more, but then we forgot the most basic of them all. And again, I'd like to apologize to all the followers of BS2PCG here in the Philippines because we forgot to create a how to play video, okay? So I took the opportunity this time to once again burden you with some time to watch this episode because we're going to teach you some basics on how to play BS2PCG. Okay, so once again guys, this is BS2PCG Deck Forger, and this is your how to play BS system to PCG. So hello guys, and welcome back to BS2PCG Deck Forger. So we have been creating numerous decks for the last few months or even a year or two, and I would like to apologize to all my followers because I forgot one of the most important video that I should have created from day one, and that is how to play this darn game video. Okay, so I would really like to apologize for that. So I took the opportunity right now to create another video, and this time I'm going back to the basics, and we're going to show in this video not any particular outrageous deck or whatsoever, but to teach new players and those card players who are interested to join or to start in BS2PCG, okay, how to play the game. So first of all, let's try to answer several questions that we had from some of our inquiries on our FB page. So first of all, let's try to ask, what is BS system? Okay, so what is BS system? So the BS system is actually a card game where at least a minimum of 2 players each build a deck of characters, plot twists and locations, and of course try to knock out their opponent. So each BS system set comes with a full playset of cards, so you'll have everything you need to play the full game right out of the box. So unlike the previous type of BS and several of the other so-called TCG or CCG card games, actually most of the cards that you need in a particular set are already included in the box. And normally, if it's not a unique set of cards, any particular box will come up with at least 4 copies of that particular card, okay, right out of this expansion. So for example, if you need to have a set of this 4 1-drop supporting character, at least it's already included in the box, so you already have 4 copies of it. Okay, now if you already played the original BS system, the OG BS system, you'll find that some of the parts of the game have been streamlined or changed in order, okay, to make it easier to learn, faster to play, and more fun to, of course, battle with the new BS system to PCG. So here are some of the major highlights of the new game. Okay, let's try to open one deck box in particular. Let's try to open this one. And as you can see here, that this is the Road Rush, okay, one of the original decks that we have built here in the Philippines. And you can see that instead of having endurance, okay, the game plays on the health of the main character. So what do you mean by this? Okay, so wounds instead of endurance, okay, characters have a new stat called health. And when a character gets stunned, instead of taking stun or breakthrough damage, it gains a wound. So if it takes too many wounds, it gets KO'd. And in this particular case, if this is your main character, if it gets KO'd, then you lose the game. So, each player starts with their main character, who works just like a regular character, except when your main character gets KO'd, as I mentioned before, you're out of the game. So, another difference, of course, is your main character can level up. As you can see here, Rogue has 3 sets of levels. So she has the level 1, and she also has the level 2. And for this particular MC, she has a level 3. So your main character can level up to become more powerful, at the same time gain additional powers, skill sets, or whatsoever, okay, as they proceed in their level. With the latest expansions, of course, I've seen characters who can go level 4, like the likes of Thanos and, of course, Deadpool. And we also saw, with the release of Futures Past, the level 5 character, which is Logan, okay, or aka the Wolverine. So, at the same time, there are simpler and faster formations. Okay, so the same as before, you can see that we have the front row, and we also have the back row, and we have the resource row. So normally the front row is where all the action is. It's called normally the melee combat, and at the same time your back row is where all the also called the range position, is where all the range combat is happening. Then at the same time you have your resource row, where normally you place, of course, your locations and other cards that are considered for your resource, so that during the build phase you can, of course, gain recruit points in order to drop your supporting characters or play equipments or whatever is needed to be played. Okay, so again, there are 3 set of rows. You have the front row, you have the back row, and you have, of course, the resource row. So the next part, of course, is we're going to try to give you the basic game concepts, okay? As just like with any card game, of course, any BS2 PCG deck must include exactly 60 cards. Unlike other CCG cards, of course, you cannot go beyond 60, and normally you cannot go below 60. It has to be exactly 60 cards. Of course, your exception, or those that are not included in the 60, are your so-called main characters. And there are main characters, of course, that are singular, like Rogue. And there are those who come in pairs. We can cite examples like Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl, and also the Park Brothers, of course. They and also the twins, okay. Of course, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and most of them actually come into play at the same time. Okay, 2 of them to be exact. Then there are also other main characters that come in multiple numbers, like, of course, the dreaded Outrider, which come into 6 pack of dogs, all out okay at once, okay, at the start of the game. And you also have the Sinister Syndicate, or the Sinister Six, wherein there are 6 cards, okay, and you come out with each one at a time, though they do not level up, of course, but they can come up one at a time, and you have to defeat all 6 members of those Sinister Syndicate in order to defeat your opponent. Okay, so they again, your deck must include 60 cards, but not including your main character, and again, not including your side pile, or what we call now as the stacks. So stacks come in many forms. You have, like example, the Ovomort stacks, okay, wherein that's with the Alien Queen. You also have the invention pile, or the invention stacks, wherein if you have inventors like the Maker, or of course Forge, or Mr. Fantastic, or Doctor Doom, they come with their, of course, particular invention pile or invention stacks. And at the same time, it can be both generic and their signature, okay, team signature inventions. Like for Doctor Doom, of course, it comes with his Doombots, okay, as an example. So, hand. You start the game with 7 cards, okay, in your hand. And you draw 2 cards each turn, of course, except if you are the one who goes first. Okay, so let's try to draw 7 cards. See? So, start the game with 7 cards in your hand and draw 2 cards each turn, and there's no limit to the number of cards that you can have in your hand at one time. So you don't need to discard if you go beyond 7. And if an effect tells you to discard a card, that means from your hand. And again, okay, there's no limit to that. Okay, so you can go to 20 cards in your hand, draw all your decks, your library, cards from your library, but it does not normally discard your hand at the end of your turn, except of course if an effect will force you to discard a card from your hand. Okay, then you also have your KO pile, and for your KO pile we have, of course, when a card gets KO'd or discarded, it goes to your KO pile, which is next to your deck. Okay, so let's try to fix first the focus of our camera, and at the same time, okay, the KO pile is face up and any player can look through it at any time. So, for example, if you try to power up Rogue with your call, then it gets pitched from your hand, then at the same time goes to your KO pile. So your KO pile is actually next to your deck. Okay, power up again, then of course you get to discard call and put it into your hand. Okay, into your KO pile. Okay, so 3 rows. So again, let's try to review. Each player has 3 rows. Again, the front row, the back row, and of course the resource row. Okay, so when you recruit a character, it can go into your front row or it can go into your back row. And characters in front are your main line of attack, as I have stated before. They also protect characters in your back row, and characters in your back row are safer, but they can only attack if they have this symbol on their card, and that is the targeting symbol or the range symbol, as we call it. Okay, so each turn you'll place a location or a face down card from your hand into your resource row. Your resources give you recruit points which you will use to play your supporting characters. For example, if you're in your opening hand, you have this particular set of cards, 7 in all. Okay, then you can also place your location here, and it's face up. But then if you don't have any location in play, or you don't want to, of course, play any location, then you can put any other card, either it's a supporting character, or it can be a plot twist, or it can be an equipment, but you have to place it face down on your resource row. And each turn, at the start of your build phase, if there are the number, of course, of cards in your resource row will contribute to the exact number of recruit points that you will gain at the start of your build phase. And that is, of course, can give you the necessary resources to be able to either play your supporting characters or to play equipment. Okay, so for example, if you have two cards in your resource row on turn 2, then at the start of your build phase, of course, you can now gain 2 recruit points, and you can now play a 2-drop character, which is called. So you cannot play, of course, Gargoyle, because Gargoyle you need at least 3 resource in order to gain 3 recruit points before you can play Gargoyle. So I think we got that right. Okay? Okay. Now let's go to the state of your cards. Okay? A card is in the ready position if it is upright, or it is in the exhausted position when it is turned on its side. Now, you have to understand that only ready characters can attack, and cards enter play ready. Except, again, if there are any effects, that will of course render them exhausted once they enter the game. So, unlike with other CCG card games, as long as you have that many ready characters in your side, then that you can attack with them readily until all of them are exhausted. So for example, if you already have a rogue in play, and you have a gargoyle in play, and you have a call in play, now you can of course exhaust rogue to attack an enemy character. Then if you're done with her, you can also exhaust gargoyle in order to of course attack with him. And you still have an opposing character in play, then you can also use call to exhaust her, and again you can attack with her. But then again, you have to understand that in order to attack from the back row position, your character must have that range power symbol in order keyword symbol in order for her to be able to attack from the back row position. Okay, so stun. So when a character is defeated in combat, it becomes stunned. So you have to turn it face down, exhausted, and if there are any +1/+1 or -1/-1 counters from it, now, okay, they are all removed. And put a wound counter on that character, that meaning that it has gained a wound. So if your total character, let's say, has 6 total health, you put a wound counter on her, then the total remaining health will now become 5. And if it gets to 0, then that character now gets KO'd. Okay? Now, you have to understand that stun characters can't be attacked. Okay? They cannot be stunned again. And they lose their powers until they recover. So some effects can cause a character to become directly stunned without it being in combat. Okay? And at the same time, if an effect will say that to wound a character, it does not necessarily mean that it will get stunned. Then, you also have to understand the difference between the hide and the daze condition. Okay? So when you say daze, that character becomes stunned, but then it doesn't get wounded. While if it is hide or invisible, just like with the newer expansions, then you get to turn it face down, but then it is in the upright position. It doesn't get any wound, but then again, it is not considered stun. So an effect that would then again stun it can affect a person that is hiding or is invisible. And okay, the main benefit for this of course is a hidden character cannot be attacked, and of course they cannot be they cannot protect at all. And any +1/+1 counters or -1/-1 counters on it are essentially removed. Okay? Now, when a character has as many wounds as its health, for example, if Cole gets 3 wounds and she has 3 health, then when that is equal to now already, then that character now gets KO. Okay, so to recover a character also, okay, let's say if Rogue was stunned, you turn it face up, then again, turn it upright, and again, it still keeps its wounds. So I think we already discussed the basic part of the game, considering that we have discussed already the basic concepts of the game. Now let's try to go to your card types. Okay, as we can see here, there are several card types in the game. Of course, you have your main character, then you also have your supporting character, then you also have your locations, and you also have your plot twist, and in some instance, of course, you also have your equipment. Okay, for example, let's try to look for an equipment in this deck. I think there's an equipment on it. Okay, this one, Chimichanga. Okay, so let's try to go over one of each card type. So let's go to your main character. Let's try to focus on that. So your main character, you can look see that on the topmost part of the card, you have your name, and on the upper right side, of course, is your team affiliation. And you can also see that at the bottom of the name is your card type, and it says their main character. Let's try to focus on that. Main character, okay? And on the left side, you can see that it has either the cost or the level. If it's a main character, then it is considered the level, okay? Then the white box, okay, at the center bottom of the card, of course, is your, okay, powers, keyword, whatsoever, game text, it's all included there. Then normally on this left portion of the card, you have your other keyword traits, and those are either flight, range, which we have adapted from the original DS system game. And at the lower bottom, of course, on the left, the first number, of course, divided by that slash sign, of course, is your attack and your defense. And on the right side, or the lower right side, of course, are your total number of health. And you can see here, of course, the card identity number, and we also have if it's either a card produced by Marvel or it's 20th Century Fox, so you can see it here. Okay, I think we have already discussed this. Now let's go now to your supporting character. Of course, most of the time you start with your level 1 main character, and as you progress in the game, you can go to level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So we still have to see any other card that, of course, starts with level 3 going back. But then again, it's not very possible for us to see that in the future. Okay? So during your turn, you can recruit supporting characters. And of course, characters either go into your front or back row. And as we can see here, this particular card type is a supporting character, normally colored brown. And on the upper right, of course, you have your team affiliation. Again, on the center top is your name and, of course, the card type. And you also have the cost. So you need at least 3 recruit points in order to drop in Gargoyle into the game. And also you have your flavor text box, and of course you have your flight and range, okay, keyword trait, and you also have your attack and defense and your health. And again, same almost as with the main character, you have your card identity number and of course which brand trademark at the lower part of the card. So going further, BS2 PC of course makes use of your plot twist, and normally they are colored blue. And you can see here that plot twist normally has this symbol here, and it's just on any turn. So meaning any turn, it can be your turn or it can be your opponent's turn, or if you're playing more than 2 players, it can be anyone's turn. Okay, so it says here that it's during any turn combat, choose an attacker to get either a +1 attack +0 defense, or a defender to get a +0 attack and +2 defense this combat. Okay? And now we go, of course, to your equipment. And equipment is almost the same as with your supporting character. It comes with a cost, and it comes with your name and title, of course, whatever card type this is. You also have the needed team affiliation, and you have your, okay, text box. And okay, you have to understand it's the same with, of course, with your plot twist. You need to have a face-up character on your side of the board, whenever you would like to play a particular plot twist. If your particular character that okay is targeting or is being target is face down, it cannot be read. Okay. So in this particular instance, let's look at this particular plot twist. It's fight a good fight. So this is a mutant resistance team stamp plot twist. So you need at least a mutant resistant character, either your main character or your supporting character face up if you want to play this particular card. And at the same time, it's the same as with your equipment. So if you want to play Chimichanga, you need to have an underworld main character, supporting character face up in your side of the board if you want to drop Chimichanga. And of course, that's beside the 4 recruit points that you need in order to play Chimichanga. Okay? And finally, of course, we have your locations. So locations are specialized kind of card in the S2 PCG, of course, because it is the only or one of the only card type that can be played face up in your resource row. And normally locations come in 2 particular types, although 3 now. Of course, we have the special locations right now. For example, you have the basic locations, and normally it has 1 symbol here considering the color, and you have the bigger symbol here to represent the color and what particular power set it can be played with. And you also have your wild location, or what we call the special location. So it normally has the symbol on the left side, and in some particular instance you also have this. Normally it's called a team stamp. Okay, so for this particular instance, Utopia is a mutant resistance team stamp location, and normally it can be used to pay for any blue, yellow, green, or red power symbol for any mutant resistance character. Okay, so speaking of color, of course, as you can see here, there are 4 basic color types for power symbols in BS2 PCG. So normally the blue or energy is represented like with the atom symbol, and normally it's used for powers that are based on technology. And you also have the yellow ones, or the intellect, which are normally used, of course, for those powers that are based on psionics or mind powers or based on intellect. And you also have the fist, or the green power symbol, and this is used for might or those strength-based superpowers. And of course, the red, normally, as you can see, it's like the targeting sign. It's used for skill-based superpower sets. So it will really depend, and there are particular instances wherein you need to use all 4 colors, just like with the Thanos deck, or let's say you need only to use a blue power symbol because Rogue Rush only works on blue. Depending, it depends really on what main character that you are supposed to use in your particular deck. See? Now, there's a third type of location, which of course I will briefly discuss. And these are the new locations that has arisen ever since Cosmic Avengers came out. And these special locations are normally using keyword powers. Okay, so this particular set, lets you activate a power symbol from for your main character, and at the same time it produces an effect. So for instance, we have a very good example here. Okay, and this is Wakanda from Cosmic Avengers. And for Wakanda, it says Vibranium technology. So during your build phase, your main character may pay any yellow power symbol or intellect, and if it does, turn this location face down, then search your deck for an equipment, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Okay, so this is the third type of special locations, and normally there are special locations for one of each of the power symbols. And of course, we have forgotten that of course there are 2 more power symbols that you need to be familiar with. And of course, one of them is the space, or what we call the alien power symbol. Okay, so the space or alien power symbol, as you can see here from Monsters Unleashed, okay, is used to pay for any space-based or alien-based superpower. So this is normally the fifth power symbol. And of course, you also have the Earth, or what you call the humanity power symbol, and this is normally used to pay for any Earth-based or humanity-based power symbol. So again, there are 6 types of power symbols. So let's try to recap. You have, of course, your yellow power symbol. Okay. And you also have your blue power symbol. Okay. And you also have your red power symbol. And of course, you have the green one. Okay. So the green power symbol is normally used to showcase those with force or those with a particular strength base, okay, superpower. Okay, so I think we have already discussed most of them. Okay, now do you need to find anything else? Then again, hope you like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we are able to again showcase you more and more videos for BS2PCG. So now, let's try to set up the game, okay? So in setting up the game, of course, we need to have 2 players. And each player needs at least a deck that has 1 main character and exactly 60 cards in each deck. Of course, again, that is not including your main characters, and of course any stacks within your deck or piles. Okay, now you also need to have at least a wound counter, an XP counter, and a +1/+1 counter, and a -1/-1 counter. And normally we showcase that using, of course, counters that are available in the BS2PCG, but you can also use dice. Okay, then at the same time, randomly determine who gets to choose which player goes first. And starting with the first player, each player puts their level 1 main character in either their front row or in their back row. So it depends. If your main character has any range, you can put it in the back row. If it has any flight, then you can put it in the front row. Okay. If they both have the same keyword trait, then again, it's your option where to put it. Okay. Then each player should set their deck down next to where their back row will be. And each player shuffles their deck and draws 7 cards. Okay. So starting with the first player, each player may mulligan 1 time. So again, let's say you try to shuffle your deck. Then you try to draw 7 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And at the same time, okay, starting with the first player, each player may mulligan 1 time. So let's say you don't want this deck or this card drawn from your deck because most of them are high drops. Then you can again shuffle your deck. Then try to again draw 7 cards, but that is your final mulligan for this match. So you cannot draw any more cards until the start of the game. Okay, so let's say you draw 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 7 new cards. If it's usually a good idea to mulligan if you don't have any location or any supporting characters. Or let's say if you have a particular combo in mind, you need those key cards at hand, then it's basically ideal to, of course, mulligan. So let's now go to the turn sequence. Okay, So each turn you'll go to the following 4 phases in your in order. Okay? So 1, of course, is the draw phase. 2 is the recovery phase. Then 3 is the build phase, wherein you get to recruit and play equipment. And at the same time, the main phase, wherein all the combat actually happens. Okay? So during the draw phase, okay, first, at the start of your turn, effects happen. Then you draw 2 cards. And if you're the first player, and this is the first turn of the game, you don't draw any cards at all. Okay? So at the start of your turn, effects happen, meaning if a particular character is face down at the start of your turn, then normally it doesn't affect anything. Okay? And during the draw phase, normally you get to draw 2 cards, unless there are other effects like, of course, Genius, or let's say other cards that give you draw ability. Okay? At the same time, of course, your next phase will be your recovery phase. So after you draw 2 cards, you get to recover any card that gets to be recovered. And during this phase, if you have any stun character, they all recover. Then ready all of your characters. So first they recover, then you ready them. Okay? Now, the build phase. The build phase consists of 2 steps. First, of course, is the resource step. Then you also have your recruit step. And of course, there's a third, of course, formation step. So resource step, you may choose any one card in your hand and place it face down into your resource row. Now it's called a resource. If you play a location as a resource, you may play it face up instead. And okay, once that you have played your resource, your recruit step now begins. And you now gain 1 recruit point for each resource that you have. Well, it doesn't matter if the resource is face up or face down. As long as there's a card in there, you'll gain 1 particular recruit point. Okay? And you can spend any or all of your recruit points to play supporting characters from your hand. Okay? So let's say if it's a 1 drop with a 1 for a 1 resource, 1 recruit point, then you play it here. And okay, you can get to play equipment from your hand also. Okay? And when you play a character, you may either put it in your front row or in your back row. Okay? Now, after that, okay, your formation step begins. You can now rearrange any or all of your characters between your front row or your back row. Or if you like it like this, now you can now, okay, rearrange during this formation step. And finally, we go to the 4th and final turns, part of the turn sequence, and that is your main phase. And this is normally the longest phase of the turn. During this phase, you can make any number of attacks, 1 at a time, or you can also do team attacks if they are of the same team affiliation, until you choose to stop attacking or all of your characters are exhausted. Now again, let me remind you, your front row characters can make melee attacks. And your back row characters can make range attack as long as they have the range power symbol. Okay? Now, making a melee attack. So when you start the combat, first you declare that you will start the combat or which character you will attack. Then exhaust 1 of your ready front row characters to become the attacker and choose a face-up front row enemy to be the defender. Now, if an opponent has no face-up front row characters, you can attack his back row characters. Okay? And if your character has flight, it can fly over your opponent's front row to attack a back row character, unless your opponent also has their own fly character or flying character in their front row. Now, during combat, let's say you already exhaust one of your character, declare the attack, to target an opponent's character. Once combat has begun, you can play one combat plot twist, or use one combat superpower, or you can pass. Then your opponent can do the same. Then you go again and so on until both of you pass in row. If one player passes but then other players play something, the first player can still play something. Then resolve the combat. Okay, so in this particular portion, you can only play a combat plot twist. Again, I shown that to you a while ago. And of course, you can play any one combat superpower. So, if you're playing multiple characters, with multiple players, with 3 or 4 players, everyone will have a chance to play combat plot twist or use combat superpowers each combat. The attacking player has the first opportunity. Remember, if you are the one attacking, you get to play first. Okay? Then play proceeds to the left. Once all players pass in succession, combat results. So when a player plays a plot twist or uses a superpower, it resolves immediately. Okay? Before the next player has a chance to play their own plot twist or superpower. Again, there are no stacking here. Okay? In BS2PCG. Now let's say everyone has passed. Now it's time to resolve the combat. So to resolve the combat, the attacker now strikes, okay, strikes the defender, and the defender simultaneously strikes back against the attacker. Now you compare the attacker's attack to the defender's defense. So if you compare the defender's attack to the attacker's defense, and if the attack is greater than or equal to the defense, the attacker will be stunned. Okay? And if the defender also has the same stats, and the attacker has a higher or equal attack to the defender's defense, then the defender also gets stunned. So there are 4 possible results to a combat. Okay? 1. No one gets stunned. 2. The attacker gets stunned. 3. The defender gets stunned. Or, finally, both characters get stunned. And when a character becomes stunned, turn it face down, exhaust it, and remove all +1, +1, and -1, -1 counters from it. And put a wound, okay, counter on that character. Okay, so making a range attack. So let's now try to make another combat. So range attacks work the same way as melee attacks with the following exceptions. You choose on one of your back row characters, and they must have the range symbol to be the attacker. The defender only gets to strike back if it also has the range power symbol. So let's say if the Call tries to attack this particular character, no matter how hard this girl tries to hit back on Call, if she doesn't have any range, then she cannot strike back. Okay? No. If your character attacks from the front row, it is always considered a melee attack. So if Call is attacking from the front row, whether or not she has the range symbol, then it's always considered as the melee attack. Okay? So, flight and range. If your character has both flight and range, just like with some characters like Iron Man or Ultron, then, okay, it can attack from your back row and fly over the opponent's front row if they have no other flying characters in your front row to attack a back row character. Okay? And the defender will only strike back if it also has the range power symbol. Okay? Now, let's try to look at how team attacks work in VS2PCG. So, let's try to get another character. And this time, it has to have the same team affiliation as your main character, Rogue. Okay, so now we have Rogue and Wolverine, and they're both from the Mutant Resistance team. And you can see here that the 2 or more characters that have the same team affiliation, okay, and are in the same row, can make a team attack against a single defender. So, team attacks works just like solo attacks with the following exceptions. You choose 2 or more front row characters to make a melee team attack, or you choose 2 or more, okay, back row characters that have the range power symbol to make a range keyword symbol to make a range team attack. Okay, and in both cases, if all your attackers have flight, they can fly over your opponent's front row to attack their back row, unless of course your opponent also has a front row character with flight. And resolving team attack works like this: add up the attack of all attackers and compare them to the defender's defense to see if the defender will get stunned. And the defender then chooses exactly one attacker to strike back against. It compares the defender's attack so that character's defense to see if it will get stunned or it will survive. Now, after each combat results, you can make another attack, and once you're done attacking, okay, either by choice or because you have no ready characters left, or because all enemy characters are stunned, and you're ready to be done with your main phase. Your turn ends and resolve any at end of your turn effects, and then the player to your left gets to take his turn. Okay? Now, how do we end the game? So, end the game. The game ends when you KO your opponent's main character or main characters if they have many, or they KO yours. Now, if you're playing 3 or 4 players, then it ends when only one main character is left. And if the final 2 main characters would get KO'd at the same time, okay, either because they're in combat with each other or to some card effect, then the player whose turn it is currently automatically wins the game. So he has a priority, so he wins the game. Okay? In a multiple player game, when a main character gets KO'd, remove all cards on that player's side from the game. So now let's try to look at counters, okay? So BS2 PCG is very heavy on counters, so I'll try to show you some of them. So in this particular instance, you can see here that you have those +1/+1 counters, you have those -1/-1 counters, and you also have your wound counter, and you also have your XP counters. So normally +1/+1 counters are used to track down all those bonuses produced by +1/+1 counters due to some superpowers or keyword effects, okay? And -1/-1 counters are used to track down those penalties that are given, again, due to keyword effects or superpowers. And if your character gets wounded, normally you track it down with this X or this wound counter. And again, if your character gains enough wound counter that reduces its health to 0, then it gets KO'd. And for your main characters, of course, you have your XP counters, wherein you get to track down, okay, your XP or experience for your main character. And for this particular instance, the main character, once it gets the sufficient number of XP or experience, then it goes to level 2 and, okay, gains additional powers. In some particular instance, there are also cards that produces vitality counter. So vitality counters are similar to your main character, except of course to your wound counter, except that it produces the reverse effect. So your vitality counter adds an additional +1, okay, health to your opponent, to your character, and of course it negates each other. If let's say you have +1 vitality counter for your rogue, so bring it to 8, then it gets a wound, then you just reduce the vitality counter in return. Okay? So, BS2 PC is very simple to learn, and at the same time, it has streamline effects already. And we'll try now to discuss the various powers. Of course, this is a Marvel game, so your characters must have powers, okay? So characters have 3 types of powers, and we have of course the superpower, and we also have the keyword power, and we also have the level up power. Okay, so those are the 3 power sets for your BS2 PCG character cards. So what are keyword powers? So keyword powers are powers that often show up on most cards in the game. And when a character has a keyword power, just follow the instruction in its text, and you can also look up in the rule book to see what the keyword actually means. And flight and range are the two most common keyword powers, and they are just represented by these symbols instead of the actual word. So the wings represent, of course, the flight keyword, and of course the range keyword is represented by the crosshairs, okay, or the targeting symbol. And at the same time, you also have superpowers. So all main characters and some supporting characters have what you call keyword superpowers, okay? And superpowers are normally those powers with a particular bold text followed by, okay, a power symbol logo. And all main characters and some supporting characters have the superpowers, and a superpower actually has a different name and a different effect each time. And of course, it can have the word build or main or combat that tells you when you can use that superpower. Okay, just like how plot twists work. When you say build, you can only play that particular superpower during the build phase. And when you say main, you can only play that superpower during the main phase. And when it says combat, you can only play that particular superpower during the combat phase. Okay, level of powers. So every level 1 main character, and in some instance level 2 main character, okay, have the of course level up powers. Okay, when you meet the XP or the experience condition, put an XP counter on the level 2 version of your main character. And once you have XP greater than or equal to the number next to the level up, okay, power, remove the XP counters from the level 2 version of your main character and replace the level 1 version of your character with its level 2 version. And the level 2 version should retain the same orientation as the level 1 version, and put each wound and +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters, okay, that was on the level 1 version onto the level 2 version. And normally the level 2 or higher version of the main character have more superpowers, okay, or keyword powers than the level 1. Okay? And level 2 characters of course work just like level 1, and they're almost the same, except that they're more powerful as you grow in level. Okay? And of course, while your level 1 character is stunned, its level up power is turned off. Okay? So other things that of course you should note. Okay, there are some cards that are considered unique, and of course cards like, of course, typical supporting characters like, of course, Call. You can only play one particular power, or Loki, for in this instance, you can only play one particular card of this type on the side of the board, and if you play the second one, the first one gets KO'd. So unless your card or your character has Swarm, then Swarm actually lets you play with multiple characters. There are so many that you can play them, okay, all at the same time. That is no problem with Swarm. Okay, and some cards, okay, they tend to have this trait called one of a kind. And one of a kind cards, of course, like what I showed you a while ago, Chimichanga, or the Nullifier, lets you only have one, okay, of that particular card in your deck. Sometimes because this card can be very powerful, and of course the game only allows one of it, okay, each time in a deck. Okay, so let's say for Nullifier, or let's say for chimichanga, you can only one of that particular card in your deck, okay, all throughout the match, okay. Unless there are some instance, okay, there are some other cards that prevent this or remove this effect entirely from your deck building, then it's okay, okay. Now where did I put the chimichanga? Okay, so normally it says they're one of a kind, so I think it will not really pose us a problem. My problem here is I can't find my chimichanga. Where's my chimichanga? Oh no, I think Deadpool already ate it. Oh man. Okay. So that I can show you, but okay, let's try to look at Nullifier. So Nullifier is one of a kind, so you can only have one of it in your deck. I think Chimichanga just got lost in the all the shuffling. Okay, there's Chimichanga. So see, you can see the Chimichanga is a bit powerful, so Chimichanga is one of a kind. So you can only have one of this card in your deck. Okay, so before we go, are there any other instances that you'd like to know about PS2PCG? So just try to hit us up down below in the comment section. And again, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us as we bring you more PS2PCG deck decks in the future. Okay, so if you like to see the comprehensive rules or the updated rules on BS2PCG, then you can visit the BS2PCG Collective, or you can try to look for it at the BS2PCG Collective Reddit, okay, system. So again guys, before we go, thank you very much for bearing with me as I'm trying to explain. I may not be the most expert at trying to teach you on how to start playing BS2PCG. Okay, but I think I did my best in order to help new players to get some interest in playing the game. So again, before we go, first of all, we'd like to thank all our friends from the BS2PCG Collective. So thank you very much to our friends, Mr. Benjamin Brosin, Mr. Joe Vitelli, Mr. Danny Privet, to Mr. C Stacks, okay, to Mr. Eddie Rad. Okay, so thank you very much guys for helping us Filipino players to become a worthwhile adversary maybe in the future, okay, for BS system to PCG. And also we would like to thank our official sponsor, the Build Pace USA. So the Build Pace USA is where we of course we get our BPL or Build Pace League Philippines, okay, online tournament. And like to thank also the guys there, like Mr. Benjamin Brosin and Mr. Joe Vitelli, okay, of the Build Pace USA. And of course, we'd like to thank all our sponsors. First of all, I'd like to thank Treats for Them. So Treats for Them, that's TREATS number 4 THEN, and you can download the Treats for Them, okay, at the Google Play Store, or you can visit our official website at www.treatsforthem.com. And okay, sooner or later we will also have Virtual Mall Philippines. So Virtual Mall Philippines, okay, is also from the same maker of Treats for Them. So again, if you are an expat or an OFW abroad and you'd like to, okay, send treats or gifts or food to your families and loved ones here in the Philippines, why not try to download and try using Treats for Them? And you can pay using your credit card or debit card and have them pick up, okay, whatever treat you gave them, okay, from more than 250 merchants here in the Philippines. And also you can have it delivered to them via special arrangement. Okay, and we also like to thank another sponsor, which is EcoSphere. So EcoSphere is the official water system for BS2PCG, and we are using it at home. We are also using it in some of our stores, and of course a lot of merchant members of Treats for Them are also now using, okay, EcoSphere. So EcoSphere is a 4-stage ultra purification water treatment device. It's so compact, it can fit right into your kitchen. Okay, so compact, so small, and you don't need to be burdened okay, or be filled up with all those water containers that you normally were using before. So again, guys, okay, try to visit Nulen, that's Nulen, and try to inquire about Ecosphere. And of course, we'd like to thank our official sponsor, and that is Forge Hobby Place, okay? And Forge Hobby Place is located at Unit 5, number 70, Velasquez Compound, and that is along Naga Road in Pulanlupa 2, Las Piñas City, Philippines. And also, of course, we also have our other venue up north, and that is PM Apartments. And PM Apartments is located at number 24 Matalino Street in Diliman, Quezon City, Philippines. So once again, guys, this is Mark Iyom, and again, thank you very much for bearing with me as we go over teaching you, training you, and trying to inform you on how to play BS System 2 PCG. So once again, okay, next week we have another new deck tech coming, and again, guys, have a good day and keep on shuffling.
I've been drinking all this lean, I know I need to stop. Hopping out of stolen cars and we